I was working the late shift at the airport gate. The kind of night where the terminal feels quieter but somehow heavier. When people are exhausted and tired from long days of travel, stressed about connections and meetings and commitments waiting at their destinations, and increasingly impatient to get where they're going as minutes tick by and delays stretch longer. Flights were delayed across multiple gates due to weather conditions far beyond anyone's control. Screens kept updating with new departure times that kept pushing further into the night. And frustrated passengers paced back and forth restlessly across the terminal floor, checking their phones obsessively and glancing at their watches as if willing time to move faster. I stood behind the counter throughout all of this, answering the same questions repeatedly with patience, reprinting boarding passes for the third or fourth time for passengers who had misplaced them, and doing my absolute best to stay calm and professional while absorbing everyone else's mounting frustration and anxiety like a sponge soaking up water. That's when I heard it clearly above the general noise of the terminal. A man standing near the gate area looked at his companions with obvious irritation and said loudly enough for half the waiting area to hear, "This is unbelievable we're stuck here wasting our time because of incompetent people like him," gesturing dismissively in my direction. Another woman in the group laughed sharply and added with a mocking tone, "Yeah, it's not like airport workers really know what they're doing anyway. They probably have no idea how to fix anything or get us out of here." They didn't lower their voices at all or attempt any discretion. They didn't care that I could hear every single word they were saying. Didn't consider that their insults might hurt someone who was simply trying to do their job under difficult circumstances. I kept typing on my computer keyboard, entering information and checking flight statuses, pretending not to notice their comments, pretending my chest didn't tighten painfully with every sentence they spoke, pretending their words bounced off me harmlessly when, in reality, they cut deep. I've worked at this airport for 7 long years now. 7 years of countless shifts watching the world pass through these gates. Early mornings when the sun hasn't yet risen and the terminal is cold and empty. Late nights like this one when exhaustion makes everything feel surreal, holidays spent watching other people. Leave joyfully for family gatherings while I stay behind at my post, making sure flights run safely and smoothly so that everyone gets home to their loved ones. People think this job is simple and requires no real skill or intelligence. They think we just stand behind counters and press buttons randomly, that anyone could do it without training or effort. They don't see the enormous responsibility we carry every single day, the complex coordination required between multiple departments and airlines, the constant pressure of knowing that one mistake on our part can affect hundreds of people, plans, and potentially their entire lives. That night, as the delay grew longer and stretched past the 1-hour mark and then the 2-hour mark, the comments from various passengers got progressively worse and more personal. One man shook his head with exaggerated pity and said condescendingly, "Can you imagine being stuck here every single day doing this thankless job? Dealing with angry people and delays, never going anywhere interesting yourself." Another passenger nearby replied with a dismissive shrug, "Well, someone has to do it, I guess. Someone has to take the jobs that nobody else wants." I answered questions politely, no matter how rudely they were asked, repeated the same explanations about weather delays and safety protocols over and over again, and absorbed the insults and the blame in complete silence, swallowing my own frustration and hurt. Because reacting or defending yourself never helps in these situations. It only escalates tension and makes everything worse. Because when you wear this uniform with the airline logo emblazoned on it, people automatically think you're part of the problem causing their inconvenience, not a person with feelings and dignity who's trying to help. Then finally an announcement echoed through the terminal speakers, the words everyone had been waiting desperately to hear. The flight would begin boarding soon, within the next 15 minutes. Visible relief washed over the entire crowd like a wave, tension releasing from shoulders, expressions softening slightly. As people began lining up at the gate area, organizing themselves by boarding groups, the same man who had been complaining loudest stepped forward to the front of the line and pointed his finger directly at me accusingly. "You better not mess this up now," he said threateningly. "We've waited long enough because of your incompetence." Before I could respond or even process how to react to such direct hostility, a calm but firm voice spoke from somewhere behind him in the line. "He won't mess anything up." The man turned around sharply, surprised by the interruption. An older passenger stood there holding his boarding pass calmly, his expression steady and serious, his eyes focused directly on the complaining man. I've been sitting here watching him handle this entire delay situation for hours now. The passenger continued clearly for everyone nearby to hear. He's been respectful to everyone despite being insulted, patient beyond what anyone should have to endure, and completely professional while you and others have been consistently rude and unreasonable. The gate area went completely quiet, all conversation stopping. The passenger looked directly at me and nodded with genuine respect in his expression. "I flew professionally as a pilot for 30 years, he said, his voice carrying authority that came from decades of experience. "And I can tell you with absolute certainty that the safest, smoothest flights were always run by dedicated ground crew. And gate agents like him, people who take their responsibilities seriously and maintain their composure under pressure." No one laughed this time or made any mocking comments. The man who had been complaining so loudly just moments before stepped back into line quietly, suddenly unable to make eye contact with anyone, his face flushed with embarrassment. I scanned boarding passes methodically and welcomed passengers aboard the aircraft like I always do, maintaining the same professional demeanor I've cultivated over 7 years. But something fundamental felt different inside me this time. I wasn't invisible anymore, at least not to myself, not in the way that truly mattered. I'm still an airport worker today and will be tomorrow and for the foreseeable future. I still deal with delays that are beyond anyone's control, handle complaints from passengers who need someone to blame for their frustration, work long, exhausting shifts that blur together into an endless cycle. But I no longer let anyone convince me that my job doesn't matter or that my work lacks value or importance. If you've ever been blamed unfairly for things completely outside your control, if you've ever been treated as less than human because of the uniform you wear or the service position you hold, if you've ever absorbed insults and hostility while simply trying to do your job with integrity, remember this story. The people who keep the world moving smoothly and safely are rarely the ones getting credit or recognition or thanks from those they serve. The pilots flying the planes get respect automatically because their role is visible and dramatic, but the countless workers on the ground making sure those flights happen safely are often invisible, dismissed, or even blamed when things go wrong. Every time you board a plane, there are dozens of people whose names you'll never know who have checked weather conditions coordinated with air traffic, control-loaded baggage carefully fueled the aircraft, properly cleaned the cabin thoroughly, and made sure every safety protocol was followed precisely. And standing at the gate is someone like me, managing passenger expectations, handling problems with grace, absorbing frustration and anxiety from hundreds of travelers, all while maintaining safety as the absolute top priority. If you've ever looked down on service workers or blamed them for circumstances beyond their control, if you've ever let your own stress and frustration turn into cruelty toward people who are trying to help you, remember that they're human beings doing difficult jobs that require skill, training, patience, and dedication. Your delayed flight isn't the gate agent's fault. They're just the person delivering news they didn't create. Your cold food isn't the server's fault. They're just the person bringing what the kitchen prepared. Your late package isn't the delivery driver's fault. They're just the person at the end of a complex logistics chain. Taking out your frustration on people who have no power to change your situation doesn't make you feel better for long. It just makes someone else's already difficult day even harder. The next time you're frustrated with a delay or a problem during your travels, take a breath and remember that the person helping you is doing their best under circumstances that are probably affecting them negatively too. A kind word or even just basic courtesy costs you nothing but can transform someone's entire shift, can remind them that their work matters, can help them maintain their dignity in the face of endless criticism. And if someone stands up for you when you're being treated unfairly, if someone recognizes your professionalism and effort when you feel invisible, hold on to that moment like the older pilot's words that night at the gate. Let it remind you that there are people who see you, who understand what you do, who appreciate the essential work you perform every single day to keep the systems of modern life functioning smoothly. Your work has meaning not because passengers thank you or because you receive public recognition, but because without people like you showing up consistently and doing their jobs with care, the entire interconnected system would collapse immediately.